Sam Armstrong is still with me. I mean, this China spy story, this may turn out to be, well, some people are predicting this could be the end of Keir Starmer.
Well, and absolutely every reason it should be. Can you imagine if the shoe was on the other foot? It was a Conservative Prime Minister that had interfered with independent lawyers, something Keir Starmer is always very keen to say should never occur, interfered to stop a trial on the basis of, they thought, financial or trade benefits. He would have been the first to call for them to go. And this is just yet another example with this Prime Minister of just brazen, blatant hypocrisy every single time. He said one thing when he was in opposition, he's now in there, and he's just as bad as any of the others. Here's the thing,
I'm not a fan of Keir Starmer. Would I have thought that he was a traitor to his country? No, I just think he's a bit hopeless and silly, lily-livered, lefty North London lawyer. You know, but that's not the same as thinking he's a traitor. I mean, of course, he was traitorous during the years post-Brexit, post-Brexit referendum, trying to undermine Britain's negotiating position. No doubt all about that. But, you know, there's a difference between, I don't really want Brexit to happen, and actually selling your country down the river for our security to China, which is blatantly a hostile enemy state. And this is the thing. I sort of almost can't get my head around them doing it, but I'm just as worried about, George Osborne when he was Chancellor, and David Cameron. They were just absolutely... And Boris Johnson taking any Chinese money. No, they're not putting it into their back pockets, but they don't half benefit to some of the jobs they get later. Our universities sold down the river. So much of the capital city of this country sold to the Chinese. So many businesses. We're about to let them have us... I mean, they've got a massive input into our energy, into so many different areas. This is dangerous. This is a country we may well be at war with in the next 10 years. This is like doing deals and doing favours for Nazi Germany at this point. I'm not making silly comparisons. I'm saying, it's pretty inevitable there will be a clash of these two Western civilization and China. There's not a single person who's got a clue what's going on in the world who doesn't think that's going to happen. Why on earth would we be, quite literally, for want of a better expression, kowtowing to the Chinese on this? And that is the thing that really worries me. Why would they do that? Why are they doing that?
Well, I think the Brexit comparison is interesting because Keir Starmer is always someone who has placed his own fringe, bizarre, in my view, misguided political ideals above the interests of our country. He was so prepared to stop, so determined to stop Brexit that he was prepared to go and undermine the UK's position in getting a deal with the foreign government. And you look at the Indian Ocean, the Chagos Island deal, and you just think that's the equivalent in the 1930s to handing over the Shetland Islands to the Nazis. I mean,
it's just weird.
We will come to rue the day that
the Channel Islands, actually. I mean, this is the thing. So just in case you've just tuned in, it's just 1 minute past 11. We've dropped the news because we were expecting Donald Trump to be speaking by now in the Israeli parliament, the Knesset. We've had standing ovations for the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, also for the chiefs of the military as well, of course, and also actually for Steve Witkoff, interestingly, as well. And actually even for Jared Kushner. And, he's been a sort of Middle East peace envoy. It's almost like having him in the room. I've said, uncanny resemblance of you, Mr. Sam Armstrong, if you don't mind me saying.
We are expecting the weight.
We are expecting Donald Trump to be speaking any moment now. As soon as he does, I promise you won't miss a single word. I think this is very, very significant. The worry, of course, is, Sam, and this is the reality, we can all be very hopeful. And yes, it's extraordinary that Hamas has agreed to hand over the hostages, the live hostages and the hostages' bodies before anything else happens. OK, ceasefire. Israel have gone back. They're still holding a large part of the Gaza land. But to hand over those hostages in one go, when that was kind of their bargaining chip. Yeah. And it was the thing that justified, in my view, any action by Netanyahu and the Israeli forces, not that they did any action. We have seen the extraordinary footage of people returning to what were their homes across Gaza, and it is devastation. I mean, devastation. Now, look, I was on the Gaza border a few weeks ago. There are 100%. There are lots of buildings still standing. It's nonsense. So where there has been fighting, where, for instance, the Hamas were booby trapping buildings, and the IDF had no choice but to basically blow the whole building up. By the way, long after people had left the country. If you look at that level of devastation, you look at footage of Dresden during the Second World War, Mosul more recently. You look at Damascus Damascus, the Syrian war. This is what a war landscape looks like. It's devastating. It's awful. It's why you shouldn't start wars, which is what Israel didn't do, what Hamas did do. I mean, I'm slightly changing the word, but, you know, frolicked around and found out is basically the message here. But how do they rebuild? Because you are going to, you know, all the nonsense and the false claims of famine and genocide, absolute nonsense. Given that level of devastation, the fact that we're only looking at, less than 40,000 civilians, even on Hamas's own figures, dying through that devastation over 2 years, is a testament. I mean, that sort of number have died in a day in previous wars, for goodness sake. That tells you how careful the IDF has been, but that doesn't mean you're not going to get innocent loss of life. How difficult will it be to rebuild Gaza? They still haven't dismantled the tunnels, they still haven't got rid of Hamas. How are they going to do it? Well,
with Hamas in place, impossible. This is an organisation which, of course, is not only the going around routinely killing Gazan civilians.
As we've seen on camera in the last 24 hours.
Anyone that poses a political challenge to it, it has been involved in the massive, enormous, industrial-scale corruption and stealing of every penny of aid that goes into Gaza. There is a reason when you see footage of the wives of Hamas leaders and fighters and diplomats, they're all carrying designer handbags.
Yes.
They're not all poor in Gaza.
Even when they were going through the tunnels to escape, yes.
They made sure they brought their designer labels with them, right? These are people that have got rich off the Gazan people. They've got rich off causing conflicts, fighting wars and all the rest of it.
And the taxes of our money that's gone to the UN and other organisations then being passed on to them.
We buy terrorists' wives handbags.
Yeah.
We do, I'm sorry.
We also buy the terrorist weapons.
We buy them Mercedes cars.
Yeah.
They're driving around, they're doing very well. However, I'm quite optimistic because having given up the hostages, Hamas doesn't have many cards left to play. So if they do try and play silly games, there will be nothing to stop Israel now prosecuting the kind of war that many people would have liked them to fight in the first place. So Hamas...
Well, because that's the thing, because the IDF didn't go into certain places in Gaza City, for instance, because that was where they believed, even certain areas in Gaza City, that's where they believed that the Hamas hostages were, and they did not want any more of their people to die as a result of their own bombing.
The hostages were Hamas's secret weapon during this war.
Well, open weapon.
Now that that's gone, hopefully, the Palestinian Authority, which is also a corrupt organisation, by the way, they can come in. I don't want to inflict on the Gazan people one suggestion, which was Tony Blair to come and rule the place. They may be bad, but they're not that bad. But look, there is going to be massive amounts of aid. And look, by the way, to all these protesters that have spent their entire time carping on and bleating on about we must do this, we must do that. Right, well, now reach into your own pocket, send some money. If you care about the Palestinian people, I'm sure we can find the link. You can donate the money to them. Go and get on with it. I get fed up with people saying, we need to do this, we need to do that. Well, if you need to do it, reach into your pocket and do it.
But absolutely, and again, can you guarantee the money doesn't go to the men with the guns? At the end of the day, it is power, it is guns, it is the ability and the willingness to be brutal that will be deciding who runs Gaza. We are expecting we really are still expecting the US president to be speaking.
He's getting a lot of applause.
He is getting a lot of applause, but there's a lot of applause for a lot of other key people who played key roles. I mean, there've been amazing footage today of those Israeli live hostages being released. Bearing in mind today, there will also be terrible sadness of the families who are going to get back their dead children, their dead husbands, their dead sons, and
some of whom have held out hope until today, and they will have learned today, amongst all of this joy, they will have learned that their plight is to face grief, and how awful for them.
Yeah, it is absolutely extraordinary, and I find it amazing that with the announcement of this deal, and certainly the agreement of Phase 1 last week, that how many of the people who claim that they care desperately about Gazan civilians, how they wanted a ceasefire, the end the genocide that isn't happening, get the aid in, so none of that could happen without the release of these hostages, and they claim that these poor civilians, they haven't had an election for 20 years. It's not their their fault. Hamas are in charge. Well, OK, so you want Hamas gone too, right? So here's a deal that delivers all of that. No one required to leave. No, if you do leave, you can come back again. Loads in aid, rebuild. Not putting the Israelis in charge. Israeli forces outside, but a buffer zone to make sure both the Israelis and the Gazans are safe from each other. I mean, what is not to like? If you claim to care about the people of Gaza, the innocent civilians, the babies you care so much about, you cannot be opposed to this peace. Oh, no, 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 they say. No, we want a different kind of peace, a different kind of ceasefire, a different kind of aid coming in. This is the thing. They'll never be happy. Now it's free Palestine, and it's something else entirely. And the goalposts have moved. They will never be happy.
These people tell you exactly what they want. They want Palestine from the river to the sea. That means all of the Jews gone. They don't care. Yeah. They don't care where. They could be dead. They could be deported. These people are actively campaigning on the streets for what? A genocide. They wish to remove the Jewish people from their homeland on the basis of the race. The irony is, the only people calling for a genocide, Hamas and their supporters.
Indeed. What do you make of the two-tier policing we saw once again over the last week, but particularly at the weekend when we had these more outrageous scenes of these marchers, again, claiming they want peace. Well, there's a ceasefire. You've got your ceasefire. Why are you calling for a ceasefire? You've already got one. And you've got these marchers and shouting again these anti-Semitic slogans, these slogans about death to Israel, death threats, open death threats are putting Zios in the ground, i.e., you and me, because we support the right of Israel to exist. That means they want us dead. I'd rather like the police to arrest people who call for that publicly, dance and cheer for it, especially if they're a student at my former university, apparently. Just so you know, just before you answer, actually, just say... Donald Trump is about to speak. He has been introduced. He's been in the Knesset now, I think, for about 15 minutes. He was given a 4-minute standing ovation already. Each member of the Trump administration watching on in the Knesset has had their name read aloud. More standing ovations for them. And the US president has been introduced as the best friend Israel has ever had in the White House. He's alongside Israeli President Isaac Herzog and also the Speaker of the House, Amir Ohana. And that is going on. We're going to be hearing from Donald Trump. I have to think, having seen Donald Trump in action over a number of years, Sam, my guess is Donald Trump, although he's getting a lot of love in the room, will get bored soon and will want to get on and give his speech. Because it is interesting, Israel, we've got on the beach in Tel Aviv, we've got, people have made signs thanking him. Yeah. Apparently every high-rise building has got signs. Yeah. Cheers in Hostages Square. He is getting a lot of love in Israel from people who know how crucial a role. I wonder if Keir Starmer went to visit, I wonder what reaction he'd get.
Who? Sorry, who?
Let me look him up. Keir Starmer. Who? Where is he? What's he?
I don't think the people of Israel, I don't think people of Gaza would recognise Keir Starmer. The only people that recognise him are his mates, the Hamas. They're over there in Qatar, down in the tunnels, because he rewarded them. Why did he reward them? In order to suck up to voters that he fears are going to abandon him at the next election. Yeah. Look, Donald Trump, I'm sure, is enjoying his moment. He does like getting praised. I imagine this is going to
deserves it in this case.
I imagine this is going to be one of these days where he's going to speak largely off his auto cue. I feel a bit sorry for his speechwriter that spent all this time with his remarks.
So do I.
He is going to be taking his victory lap. But as actually,
he doesn't. There are lots of people who don't like this deal because it's Donald Trump.
Yeah, and by the way, he deserves a Nobel Peace Prize for this.
Totally.
Why he wasn't given it last week?
But
I don't know.
It hadn't happened by last week in that sense. Could you try? I mean, not that Obama had to do anything to get his Nobel Peace. He'd been in power. Well, he'd been nominated within 6 weeks of taking office. He hadn't done a thing. He's responsible for more deaths, if you ask me, by
these organisations have been taken over by the left. It is basically impossible to win a prize as a right-wing president and guaranteed as a left-wing one. We know what is going on, but look, frankly, one Nobel Peace Prize isn't enough if this peace holds.
Yeah, that's the thing, does it? But I mean, coming back, because I've just got a sideline there talking about what's happening in the Knesset, but in terms of what's been happening on our streets, these people who protest, who got their kafirs on. Yeah. and they feel very strongly, apparently.
Terrorist scarves.
The terrorist scarves. They never seem to know many facts. I always think it's strange. It's like people who campaign on things like climate change, and you try and have a conversation with them based on not opinions, but just should we just talk about a few of the facts and establish some facts? They tend to know very, very little. I mean, Greta Thunberg knows less about Gaza and Israel and the history of the Middle East than she knows about climate change. This is what happens when you bunk off every Friday. But there we are. But what do you make of the people on the streets continuing to be on the streets, and the continuation of, no matter how many times we point it out, the two-tier policing on our streets?
Well, on the two-tier policing, I'm not surprised. As listeners all know, I work for the Free Speech Union when I'm not here, and time again, over the 4,500 cases we've seen, there is a massive, totemic, enormous, huge imbalance between the kinds of people who are hauled before the courts or visited by the police for frankly benign, anodyne comments on social media, and the extreme statements, acts of hate and violent imputations that are absolutely criminal. They meet that test of criminality anywhere in the world, which is calling for imminent lawless action. And time again, they are ignored. And by the way, it wasn't just that little Muggins, little Tarquin that was shouting all of that stuff. And as I say to him, come and have a go. If you want to put Isaiah in the ground, I'll give you a chance to let me know where and when, I'll be there. But it was an entire crowd, a mob, a horde, all of whom joined in shouting that back, because it's all call and response. They've all said it. And as far as I'm concerned, each and every one of them has called for imminent violence against people in this country. I will defend free speech, but that's way over the line. It's not the sort of speech that I or the organisation I work for defends. Each of them needs arresting and charging. And if they don't, and they won't. It tells you everything you need to know about the police and their priorities today.
Do we think, I mean, I know coppers, got friends who are coppers, I talk to individual police officers, and do you think that they are going, I absolutely support the cause of the Palestinian people? I don't think they are that political. I think your average copper is as horrified by all this, but they've got their hands tied, because you've got the sort of the DEI hires, you've got the senior figures in the police. You've got Met. I mean, Mark Rowley, I mean, better than Cressida Dick in the Met Police, but
it's a low bar.
It's exactly as you say, a low bar. And you know, they're basically on instruction that, and then also there clearly is this issue where, look, we can arrest the odd person who's holding a sign saying "I stand with Britain's Jews." Again, sorry, how on earth? Well, it's provocative. It's why is it so provocative? You think there's going to be violence? So you think that someone saying "I stand with Britain's Jews" will provoke somebody into violence? Isn't that the problem? I mean, I'm sorry. It's like the person who's provoked into violence in that scenario is the problem, not the person holding the sign. But crucially, they won't send in the police vans. They don't send in the heavy mob police. Now, there may be a very, very strong argument for policing in a more subdued way, but to get people. But they don't arrest people. They are not arresting people in those marches, and they're largely not being arrested after the fact either. They don't mind going in when it's a few retired librarians and vicars who are sitting on the grass outside, Parliament, saying, the T-shirt on saying, "I heart Palestine action," which is a prescribed terrorist group. They'll do those people because they know it's safe to arrest them, but they won't do the people who are blatantly shouting for death to some of our fellow British citizens on the streets of this country. And that is intolerable. It's intolerable.
And look, there's no doubt that the police leadership are a massive, the majority of this problem. But I do have a problem with individual police officers, PCs, sergeants and the like, all of whom, by the way, took an oath to uphold the laws of this country impartially. I do have a problem when they're going around and nicking these people either because they've been told to, or because they're cowardly, or because they just think it will cause less hassle that way. Every time that happens, those individuals, just like the sexists and the misogynists and the racists, they need kicking out of the police force too, because they've got no role in British policing. If you are arresting someone, nicking someone, exercising their free speech because it's convenient, I'm sorry, I don't want you wearing the uniform. I don't want you on the streets of London. We need better than that. This country's got a massive crime problem. We need to have really high standards for police officers. We probably need to pay them more, and then we need to expect them to go out and do the job properly. The standards we set for people working in public roles. But also
knowing the law, knowing the actual law. And by the way, we need to have a little bit of exercise in, like, what Hamas slogans are and what they mean. So much more to talk about. We didn't go to a break or to the news. In fact, we're going to miss another break now. Lucky old you. You get more of me and Sam. But because we're waiting for Donald Trump. This is why we don't normally do live feeds for these very things, but I think it's such a significant speech. But I think Donald Trump's already looking a little bit bored. I'm not gonna lie. In the Knesset, in the Israeli Parliament, big standing ovation from those in attendance. He's been very much praised. His team who were there with him as well, Steve Witkoff, his son-in-law Jared Kushner, and others, all being praised. Other senior figures, also Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister. I mean, let's he's agreed to this deal. For goodness sake, he is. I mean, get this. People always talk about. You hear on the BBC all the time. He's so unpopular in Israel. I'm telling you what. He still leads one of the most popular parties in Israel, and otherwise he wouldn't be in power, right? Here's the other key thing: the Israeli people are united as almost one. It's a democracy. People are allowed to have different opinions in democracy and express them and not get shot. I know, weird concept. Maybe the Gazans could understand that at some point. But genuinely, if you've been to Israel, talked to so many different people, and you look at the polling, the Israeli people are, as possible as it's possible to be, united in they want the Israeli hostages back. They want peace. They don't want to be at war, and they want Hamas destroyed. Now, we've got one of those, second on the way, third of those, big question mark about that.
But just going back to Benjamin Netanyahu, we were told again and again by experts, foreign policy figures, diplomats, retired this, that, whoever, on the BBC, remember, these are the smart people, these are the people you've got to listen to, these are the only people that are worth trusting. We were told again and again, Benjamin Netanyahu will never allow a deal to be done. Why? Because, he's got this trial going on where he's facing charges and they can't do it. Well, it's the war and it's his own interest, and he's just stoking the war in order to get re-elected. Right. Firstly, he's done the deal, right? He's done the deal. Secondly, Benjamin Netanyahu has never been as popular today. There hasn't been a poll done, but I can tell you, if you did it, he wouldn't be. Has never been as popular as he is today. He has achieved the objectives, we hope, of everything that the Israeli people wanted: to get the hostages back, to remove Hamas, to ensure that they are not rewarded for conducting an appalling act of terror that, just a reminder for those that are still slow, started all of this off in the first instance. Everything that is poisoned the mainstream debate in this country about what is going on here. Everything you were told was not true. It was baloney. It was balderdash, and it's shame on the journalists that allowed it to be told. Shame on them, because a lot of them knew better. Oh well, they do know better. I have to say, apparently, every time we speak, I mean, certainly, I don't know if you're getting your checks from Israel or not, but I'm being told constantly. It's the latest thing that I'm getting. It starts with 7,000 shekels that you're getting. The Israeli currency. Every time I post a tweet, apparently I'm getting. I mean, genuinely, I am absolutely rolling it now, if that is the case. But I think, as I said last week, I'm hoping for better things at the Christmas party this year. Well, yes, exactly. You're on very dodgy ground here. The thing is that it alternates, because the little memes I get sent, which is just the classic sort of anti-Semitic stuff. It's basically, it is blatant. You cannot possibly be speaking up for Israel, only democratic state in the Middle East, our ally, who've been a victim of a terrible atrocity. You cannot possibly be speaking up for them unless you're being paid to do so, because it must be evil and terrible otherwise. So 7,000 shekels, this is the thing that bothers me, because when I do send my invoice, obviously, what I love is me saying this lot, they won't even get it, it's sarcasm. No. When I do send my invoice, 7,000 shekels, right? Is it 7,000 shekels, or, as many are claiming, £7,000? Well, that would be great, but because 7,000 shekels is only worth £1,604, right? And it's only worth $2,138. So ideally, I'd be wanting it in dollars, wouldn't I? So shall I send my invoice in dollars? I mean, because this is what is being claimed. Well, invoice in Bitcoin, maybe. I mean, this is the thing, isn't it? This is the madness that we're getting, that anyone who says, well, let's face it, we debate facts, we talk about facts. For me, I support Israel.
And I'm wearing my hostage, I'm wearing the colours of the Israeli flag right now. I support Israel because they've been the victim of a terrible, terrible atrocity, and we should be on their side. And their conduct of the totally justified war, some of the most totally justified war in history, has been to get their own people back held hostage. Hamas could have given them back any day of the week since October the 7th, 2023. There's some nonsense. There was a deal on the table on the 8th of October. What a load of abject nonsense. The Israeli forces have caused deaths in Hamas. In Gaza, of course they have, but that's because Hamas started a war and basically often forbade people from leaving their buildings. When the IDF sent warnings, they literally send mobile phone messages. They're in control of those towers. They send leaflets.
Yeah.
They issue say you've got hours to get out. They don't give like a minute's warning. They want people out. People are told to leave, and then Israel gets attacked because people leave Gaza City so that they can then go in and defeat Hamas. Hamas build the London Underground's worth of tunnels using billions in aid sent supposedly for the Gazan people. They spend 20 years building those tunnels. Enough tunnels, by the way, for every single member of public or every single civilian in those areas to be hidden and safe from those bombs. Do they let the civilians in? No. What they want is for babies and children and women to be killed, and they want to then put that out in their propaganda. You have never, ever once seen any films of the following things. A Hamas fighter, a man, being treated in hospital, or his body being carried with his gun beside him, because Hamas don't allow that image to go out. And B, you have never actually seen images of famine. No, you've seen some kids who were ill.
And let's just get this right, because this whole war has been like playing whack-a-mole with lie after lie after lie.
Yeah.
That kid that had his image disgracefully splashed across international newspapers, we were told, is the victim of a famine. In fact, he was receiving medical treatment in Italy
for 2 months
for a long-standing health problem that he had, which is developmental problems. Now, that child, I have nothing but sympathy for and compassion for, like many children born with congenital problems, and I'm
quite a big issue in a place where they have higher rates of cousin marriage. By the way.
Quite. And I've got nothing but admiration for the doctors that were treating him. But to exploit an image of that baby in order to tell a lie about a conflict going on hundreds or thousands of miles away from that was disgusting. And there are newspapers in this country that put that image on the front page that have absolutely categorically failed to adequately apologise for being a useful idiot, and they were useful idiots, in the lies of a terrorist group that is going around murdering, raping, killing anyone that it can get his hands on. Shame on them, and shame on everybody that doesn't put their hands up and just say,
indeed. I mean, the latest claims is this supposed journalist, in inverted commas. I don't want journalists killed in war. They should be protected. Some journalists, we're told some 200, I think, journalists, but about 100 of them, very questionable credentials, and they're basically working for Hamas. But journalist Saleh al-Jafrawi, I'm sure I mispronounced that, he has been killed. We're told by the Israelis on the last day that this man has been all over the TV in the Middle East, all over the place. Very, very famous name. The interesting thing is, of course, he's also been, not just as a journalist, posing and always somehow at the heart of things. Incredible access this journalist got, but he's also been seen, being a father mourning his child. He's been working as an aid worker. He's been a doctor. I mean, the man he's like Mr. Ben. He's literally like, remember Mr. Ben when we were kids? And he's like, he puts another outfit on. Oh, look, I come out of the dressing room of the shop and look who I am today.
Mr. Ben,
I mean, he literally, that's how old I am. He literally is, is a caricature of he's a joke. It's a joke. He also, it is thought, actually was probably killed by one of the other clans, one of the other militia. Lots of anger towards this man who'd been protected by Hamas until this point, because he is alleged to have helped to lead fundraising, some $10 million or something, for a hospital, and then basically siphoned off a load of the cash for himself.
Oh, surprise.
I know, it's all very, very shocking. But the latest lie is that Israel killed him.
Yeah, and look, I mean, honestly, they've all, Hollywood casting agents should head to Gaza and get in there, because they've all had these careers as extras. Everyone in Hamas does different stuff. And we saw, you're the son of the Deputy Agriculture Minister. Yeah. Good news. The BBC would like you to present a totally impartial documentary.
And pay you for it.
Into what's going on around you.
Right. Benjamin Netanyahu is now addressing the parliament, addressing Donald Trump in the Israeli parliament, the Knesset. So we're going to take a very brief break, hopefully that not missing any words from Donald Trump. So do stay tuned.